Hi, welcome to the I've Never Met a Woman Architect Before podcast. I'm Michelle Grace Huddle Architect, and my guest today is Alexandra Lange. Today's episode is sponsored by Stone Architect, Granite Your Planet. This episode is brought to you by Stone Architects, the natural stone specialists behind Granite Your Planet. We help cities and designers build sustainably with long-lasting, low-carbon granite that outlived concrete by centuries. Join the movement at graniteyourplanet.com. Stone Architect, Granite Your Planet. Thank you. And Alexandra Lange is a journalist, design critic, and author. Her essays, reviews, and profiles have appeared in numerous design publications, including Architect, Harvard Design Magazine, and Metropolis, as well as The Atlantic, New York Magazine, The New Yorker, and The New York Times. She is a contributing writer for Bloomberg CityLab and has been a featured writer at Design Observer, an opinion columnist of Dezeen, and the architecture critic for Curbed. In 2025, she was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for criticism for a series on how urban design and architecture affect children and families. And her last name rhymes with Rang. I said it right?
Yeah, you said that right.
Yeah.
People always ask, so I just put that in there.
Okay, thanks. So how are you doing this
I'm good.
Thanksgiving season?
I'm good. All the Thanksgiving prep starts tomorrow, so I'm fine.
I know. We had to get the turkey out because my refrigerator isn't that great. And so like last year, it will freeze it and it stayed frozen. And then we were like, trying to thaw it out like, the day of, and we didn't eat till later on at night, which was fine with me. I'm fine with it. But I think there were some people that were rather angry. But I mean, it was just our family. And so we're going to do the holiday gift list after I ask Alexandra all of the questions. And this year we're going to combine the holiday gift list with the end of the year book review, because that way people can purchase books for the holidays for all of these architects and architecture fans, because we don't want to get gifts that we don't want.
And no Frank Lloyd Wright calendars. That's my number one message to the world. Stop giving your architecture friends Frank Lloyd Wright calendars.
Alexandra, I would be fine if I got a Frank Lloyd Wright calendar.
Really? I would not be fine. I would recycle it immediately, but
oh my gosh. So you don't want any calendars?
I don't want any calendars. I don't use a paper calendar, so it's not necessary. Okay.
Yeah. What's your number one thing? I know that you said you didn't want anything, and I said, "Oh, let's wish for a woman in the White House and peace on earth." That was my response to that. But is there anything else that you wanted to tell people that you were interested in for a holiday gift?
I mean, mostly when I shop now, like I try to shop a lot on Etsy and eBay. So I feel like going to the used or vintage version of whatever the thing the person has asked for is a more fun way to go about it. Like we're getting a real tree this year for the first time in a long time. And I just, went to eBay and I was like, what's out there in vintage tree skirts? Like, do I even like tree skirts? I just want to kind of see what's out there. So I think it's fun to just kind of browse in that way. And that means that whatever you get is going to be a little off the fashion cycle, which I think often helps you to, think harder about like what a person's taste actually is, because you're not so caught up in the thing that all the different stores are showing this year. So like in the tree skirt department, there are a whole bunch of like homemade quilted tree skirts from the 80s and 90s that are super charming, and you could never get something that nicely made, commercially right now.
Yeah. I would go for like a 60s tree skirt, I think, if there's any out there. But who knows if there's any
Yeah,
out there
yeah, there
right
are
now,
with
right?
like fun, there are a number with like fun fringe, like metallic fringe, stuff like that.
Yeah, ball fringe. I love ball fringe, but yeah,
Yeah.
actually, I actually have sewn in the past. I haven't sewn like recently, but I mean, I do like to sew because then you can just do whatever you want to. You don't have to rely on that. The problem is that so many of the fabric, like there used to be this great fabric shop on Pico in West LA that was like this old F&S fabrics, and then they also opened up an upholstery one, and so they had great fabrics. I got my wedding dress there a million or wedding fabric to make my wedding dress like a million years ago. But yeah, I mean, I just think that like some of the textile, and then if prints aren't in fashion, right, then like then you end up with like these prints that are kind of, I don't know, they're just not very well designed. I think, it's like they're not very
Yeah.
well designed, but yeah. Um, okay. So, what are your first recollections of experiencing architecture?
I feel like my first big architecture experience was so both my parents were college professors. So when I was 13, they both went on sabbatical and my family went to live in Milan for
Huh.
a semester plus. And I remember even the first day being in Milan, we got to our apartment and then we got on the tram and we took it downtown to the big piazza in front of the Duomo and the Galleria Vittorio Emanuele. And it really blew my mind because up until then, I lived at first in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and then in Durham, North Carolina. And Durham, North Carolina certainly does not have that like scale or urbanity or age of architecture. And the idea that you could just hop on this tram and ride for 15 minutes and then be in this kind of, spectacular ancient space had a huge impression on me. And I think one of the reasons I've always um, lived in larger cities, college and thereafter, and I don't really like to drive, is from that experience in Milan of really understanding like what it means to live, a European car light lifestyle.
Mhm. Yeah. I didn't drive. People are like, "Oh, did you start driving at 16?" I said, "No, I lived in Pittsburgh. Nobody drove. You only drove if like somebody made you or something, or you were, I don't know." Like, not that people would get their license, but then we wouldn't drive somewhere. So I had been, when I commuted, like I would go into downtown Pittsburgh, we didn't, on the streetcar or a bus, when I was like 12 or 13 years old, like by myself, or with my friends, just to go down and we would walk around, downtown Pittsburgh, so we would just take that. So it wasn't until I was probably, I didn't get my driver's license until I was maybe 23 or 24. but, but I do remember going to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo because I'd wanted to transfer to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo instead of Cal Poly, because I'd heard about Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and then I went there and it was in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, I can't go to school here. Like I can't go. Like, I don't, I mean, like this is really good. Like it's so far away from any major city, like ours. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So Cal Poly, there's this rivalry between Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and Cal Poly Pomona, and I always say that I'm into Cal Poly that's in a major metropolis. It's, it's um, and then what three classic buildings do you like and why?
Oh yeah. Okay, so the three
And
I
not
picked.
classical,
Right.
classic.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna pick a classical building anyway.
yeah.
So the three I picked, but as probably everyone always says, like I could pick a different three today, I could pick a different three tomorrow. Like there are endless numbers of buildings to pick. But so the three I picked for this, number one, Lever House is my favorite New York City skyscraper.
Okay.
Mostly because it breaks all the rules of all the other skyscrapers by being, so small in having its perpendicular box terrace area and being, really kind of delicate, but also holding its own on Park Avenue. So I love Lever House. My second favorite building is the Menil collection. Somebody asked me about favorite buildings recently, and that was really the first one that sprang to mind. So that's, Renzo Piano Building Workshop in Houston, and it's a museum. But, unlike so many other museums, even modern museums, it's really quite modest in scale and fits really beautifully into this old, bungalow neighborhood and integrates into the landscape. So I just think it's a great example of how beautiful architecture that, is actually really significant. It won the AIA 25-year award, et cetera, doesn't need to be bombastic. And let's see, the third building I picked, is the George Nakashima compound in New Hope, Pennsylvania. George Nakashima is best known as a furniture designer. He did a lot of the live edge wooden furniture that you see in a lot of, mid-century modern homes. And he also designed a series of buildings for himself and his family and his workers, all on this like wooded site in New Hope. And his daughter is still running the furniture workshop there. So you can go and tour it. And, one of the highlights is there's this enormous barn that's filled with slabs of wood that might one day become furniture. And they're just stacks and stacks of them. And, it's like cherry and walnut, mahogany, like maple, every beautiful wood you can think of, just, kind of awaiting its purpose. And it's kind of amazing to think about him picking some of those slabs 50 years ago, and then his family still working with them and making this furniture now.
I've never heard of that. He did the bench too, right? Did
Yeah, I
he
mean,
do
he did
bench?
everything. I mean, benches,
Yeah.
tables, chairs.
Did he do the slatted
Actually,
bench or not? Is that not his?
no, the slatted bench is not him
Okay.
because it's all with slabs. But
And with the
if you
edge.
go in the Asian wing at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, they have a bunch of Nakashima furniture in the galleries as like the seats and sitting areas. So it's a great way. It's a great place where you can actually just, go and sit in Nakashima furniture as part of the whole viewing experience.
Huh. Okay. And with the Lever House, it was designed by SOM. And with
Yes.
and the woman that worked for SOM.
Yeah, it's Gordon
Yes.
Bunshaft and Natalie DeBlois.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Let's make sure that we mention Natalie because, she's one of those people that worked for a big firm, but people don't know who that is or didn't know
Yeah.
didn't know the truth behind that,
Yeah.
and then also raised a family, while she was, working and right. What do you like about being an architect or an architecture critic or architecture writing? Did you go to architecture school?
I have a BA in architecture, but not a professional degree. And then I have a PhD in architecture history.
Okay.
So what do I like about it? I think I like about it is, everything is architecture. So you can kind of make anything that you're interested in about architecture. I've written a book called The Design of Childhood, and then subsequently a book on the history of the shopping mall. And both of those really grew out of my own experiences, growing up in the suburbs in the 80s and then having young children. So I think it can be really fruitful to take, the intersection of your own life experience and figure out how that connects to movements in architecture, types of architecture, and then try to find new stories to tell coming out of that.
Yeah. It's interesting because my daughter has an undergraduate degree in social work and a master's of science in occupational therapy, but she when she was getting her bachelor's, she was like, oh, one of the things was that Child in the Woods. Is that the name of the book?
Last Child in the Woods.
Yes. And so she read that and she's like, okay, I get what you were doing now. Like, like I get what you and dad were doing, like raising us this way where, we wouldn't let them watch like regular, like they were only allowed to watch PBS. I was only allowed to watch PBS also, so I did like occasionally watch some stuff, but like we really didn't have a TV like growing up that much, like, and then, she was like, oh yeah, people would say like, what did you do without a TV? She's like, I don't know, we always like be doing something, and it's not like they were sheltered, right? They're still not sheltered because we have so much around us that still is, media, and you're just being, and that was even before, right? The internet was like really kind of so involved in like kids' lives and, marketing and things like that. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, it's always interesting when your kids are old enough to kind of see your tracks and realize that this thing you always said was actually not you, but some book that you read at a key time in your parenthood.
Yeah. Not even, I mean, just, I don't know. I think they just kind of get it. Like, I mean, like my daughter, like the first year of college, I'm sure your son has like similar experiences, but, there were people in the dorms that, I said, well, maybe they were just like saying that because they just wanted help with their laundry. But there are people that like had never washed their clothes before, right? They never had to wash their clothes. And like the laundromat was right across from her room. And so there were always these people like, oh, how do you wash your clothes? How do you wash clothes?
Yeah.
Like, what do you, just, I mean, just bizarre stuff, or just things that like I had told her, like, okay, well, what, just being kind of frank with them about things, to say like, okay, kind of, and not sheltering them as far as like I mean, of course you have to shelter them from some of your experiences, but I mean, just things kind of like so that they're more aware, and just having them, experience, life, and having them do things, not always doing things for them or taking them with you to the store, or, to pay bills, or, whatever, right? Kind of like giving them life experiences so that they can grow up to be, functioning adults, I would say. But yeah. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And so at that point, what do you want to say about the future of architecture?
The future of architecture? Well, so I've been working on a new book that's really about the 1970s and the built environment, and a lot of the innovations that happened during that decade vis-a-vis the oil crisis and the environmental movement. So I'm currently writing the chapter, trying to, kind of bring forward and make connections between those ideas of the past and now. So I've been doing a lot of like research and visiting projects that are built to the Passive House standard. So, and I think that really that is one of the things that is already part of the conversation, but is super important for the future, is how can we build buildings that require less power to run? And in fact, also, create a healthier internal environment. I think, COVID-19 made people much more aware of air quality, both inside and outside, and air recirculation. And that hasn't necessarily been immediately folded back into the buildings that we're building, but Passive House is one way to get much higher indoor air quality, and a much better handle on how air is being, kind of recirculated and filtered. And I think that's going to be a big deal, both, for public health, for bringing costs of construction over time down, et cetera. So yeah, it's more operational than aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, um I don't have any heating or air conditioning in my house. And people are like, I mean, we had a double-sided wall here. It's a 1953 house, and I had a sided wall heater, and then it just was never, the thermostat was never. And so I just had the gas company. I'm like, just turn off the gas to it. Like, I'm not even going to use it at all. And like, occasionally we'll use like an electric heater if it gets a bit, basically like we don't have people are like, well, you're in California. And I said, well, it does drop down to 40 degrees, at night, I mean, it's not like but, it's, we never use air conditioning, I mean, like maybe we'll use fans, like for maybe 3 to 4 weeks, maybe maybe it'll be hot, maybe 3 to 4 weeks out of the year or something where it's kind of like really kind of unbearably hot. But but I mean, I go to Arizona, I'm licensed in Arizona, like the air conditioning, like that's like, it's like people are indoors, they're in air conditioning, it's like some people go outside, but really, and then most of the buildings, it's like they all have air conditioning in them, but meanwhile, it's like it's getting to be like 110 degrees. I mean, definitely triple digit temperatures 6 months out of the year. So I think that we need to get a handle on those things, like
Yeah,
through architecture and design.
definitely.
Okay.
Get a handle on them without resorting to purely mechanical systems.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Or, I mean, I'm sure Tyvek is never going to sponsor me anyway, but like I don't think there's just these Tyvek, I'm like, I mean, I was like speaking to another person that's in Spain, it's like these people are complaining about mold and mildew, but then they're like wrapping their houses in plastic,
Yeah.
and so, I mean, that's not going to, that's why, I said like, yeah, older houses, there's nothing there. It's like the building is breathing, a lot better than, we have windows that all the windows are operable, right? I go to some places like, people never open up the windows. I'm like, why don't you just open up the window in the house? So, or in the bathroom, Um, okay, so we're going to do the book list,
Okay.
right? And do you want to alternate? Like, do you want to alternate book, like before? Like, what's your first book?
Okay. So my first book is probably the largest book by volume that is being published this year, which is New York 2020, which is the final volume in Robert A.M. Stern and collaborators series of books on New York from 1880 to the present. And each one covers like a 20-year period in the development of the city. And they're literally like encyclopedia sized, but they're super useful if you need to do a deep dive into a building, from the past, because they're really well footnoted. So you go and you read like their little summary of the whole construction saga of this building, all across New York City, all different building types. And then you can go to the footnotes and find like all the New York Times articles that were written about that building. So they're not really books for reading, but they're terrific reference books of a kind that you really like. I don't think any other city has books of that scale and level of detail that have been written about the 20th century.
Yeah, I don't know of any. Did you
Yeah.
help to write any of the chapters or anything?
Oh, no, I did not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mine is going to be um Gregory Matola. He used to be at Bolin Swinski Jackson, but now he is actually at Walker Werner, and they're working on a book that's until, it's not going to be published until 2027, and that's with Oro Editions. And then they're doing, he had worked on one with Bolin Swinski Jackson when he was there, and it was supposed to be out this fall, but now but it's also on houses, and I think it's called Resident. I forget what the name of it is, but anyway, that's the one on Paul and Sawinski Jackson, the residential edition.
Okay. Um, so my next book it's a quirky book in the realm of architecture books. It's called Almost Nothing, and it's by Nora Wendell. And it's a combination of a memoir and a biography of Edith Farnsworth, the client for the Farnsworth house.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the story of Nora's quest to find answers to a bunch of kind of burning architectural and biographical questions about Edith Farnsworth and the whole process of doing architectural research and the way in which that research is never actually going to give you all the answers that you desire. So it's a really beautifully written work, and it really like stands out, from other works about Mies van der Rohe, but also just from other works of architecture and history.
Yeah, that sounds great. I want that one. Yeah. The other one, this is and mine is Olson Kundig houses. Um, which I've got the Olson Kundig now because we're on video. I mean, so this one is the Olson Kundig working title, you know.
Okay.
And yes, this is also good. But he's got the Olson Kundig houses, which I've not purchased yet. I told the kids that I wanted to, but I said, "Oh, it's like I want him to sign the book. He signed this one, and then I just said, my daughter's like, well, how are we going to do that? I'm like, just forget about it. I'll just like send him an email and ask him to sign my book." So that was also another thing that I wanted to do, is that if people want books signed by the architects, I'm going to be going through and contacting them to let them know that, if a person listened to the podcast, that they're going to send it. Of course, everybody's going to have to do the postage for it, but it's always nice to have a signed book, I think. Okay, so that's the Olson Kundig houses.
Okay. So my next book, these are moving a little bit out of architecture and into design more generally.
Fine. Yeah.
But my next one is called Alphabet in Motion, and it's by the graphic designer Kelly Anderson. And she has a beautiful Instagram account and is really best known for doing this amazing paper engineering, like very abstract paper engineering. And so this book is the entire, history of the alphabet, a history of fonts, but all done with these manipulable, like pop up, fold out, like moving pages. And it's really, really incredible.
Okay. So the whole book is the pop up of the
Yes.
of the alphabet. Okay.
Yeah.
I love pop up books. I'm glad you brought up pop up.
This is like the nicest pop up book you'll ever see.
It's not one you're going to want to give your kids, right? We used to get like
no, it's
pop-up
not
books
for
when we were
children.
little,
It's
and our kids
adult
were like-
pop up books.
The what? The what?
It's adult pop up books.
Yeah, it's adult pop-up.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next one is it's Through the Long Desert with George O'Keeffe and Frank Lloyd Wright by Sarah Roving. And they had an exhibition on George O'Keeffe. It's like, I have not read the book. I'm glad that it's a woman author that's doing right. Like, I'm always promoting women authors. So that's the other one. So Through the Long Desert with George O'Keeffe and Frank Lloyd Wright. And it's a beautiful cover on the book too. It's like, definitely, a lot of times I like look at these covers and I'm like, why did they pick that cover? Why did they pick that cover?
Sometimes it's for cost reasons, but nobody ever wants to say that out loud.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, my next choice is a woman biographer of a woman fashion designer, Claire McCardle, who was one of the most famous American fashion designers of the post-war era, and invented a bunch of things like wearing ballet flats and kind of interchangeable modular wardrobes. So Elizabeth Evans Dickinson, who's a friend of mine, wrote a really, really fun biography of her that came out earlier this year, that I think is just a great thing to read, thinking about creative process and why we dress the way we do, and some of the ways in which women have been thwarted by, businessmen, business regimes, corporatism, etc. But she had a really fabulous and unfortunately, cut short by health reasons career, and made a lot of clothes that I think people will recognize.
From what age, what period was that?
It's her work is mostly in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you have one with the women's suits?
Yeah.
Design? Yeah. Okay.
She designed suits. She also designed these amazing kind of goddess dresses that are really all about fabric being draped on the bias, and then you could belt it, that I think were one of the first garments that was sort of freeing of the body, but also flattering on a range of different body types. So just really
Mhm.
attuned to how to like get the most out of a piece of clothing.
Okay. Okay. That one sounds great too. Um, uh, so my next one is Meet Me at the Fountain, and that's by Alexandra
Okay.
Lange. And I know that I like sent you something about is anything about the Century 3 Mall or anything? Is anything in there? Did I know that did you write something about the Century 3 Mall or not outside of Pittsburgh and
I
South
did
Hills
not,
Village?
yeah,
Okay.
I did not write about that particular mall.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then Natalia Hayes. Now Natalia Hayes actually, who was a Dust Architects, she actually brought up as one of her three classic buildings was this shopping mall that's in Dallas.
Oh, North Park.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
which has the yeah,
Yeah.
which has the planners and things, which I just thought, I mean, I just have so many memories. I mean, right? Like I was born in 1964. So I have so many memories of like going to the shopping mall with my grandmother, as opposed to going downtown. I mean, we would also go downtown to downtown Pittsburgh, but then also there would be the shopping mall and just going to the shopping mall and then there being, kind of a theater that was close by. So we would go to see these reissued Disney things. And then we would also, go to lunch, just walk. And then my grandmother would just like park herself because my mom didn't have her until she was 40. So she was in her 60s before which, she would just, park herself there like by the fountain, and then there would be, there were kind of these little there was like water running through, and then they had skylights. And so, of course, in Pittsburgh, where, it's cold outside, I mean, it was kind of this, place where you could go where, there were like little streams and things with bridges over the top. And I'll post, we have this one photograph that actually got, double exposure in it. And I'm
Mhm.
like standing on the bridge, but then also there's like this little, for photo hut in it or whatever. And then me looking over this bridge. So it's really kind of funny. But yeah, they had a photo hut in there and all of these kind of like little things. So anyway, and that's by Alexandra. And do we can just buy it on the internet or can we buy it from you or not?
You can't buy it from me, but yes, you can
Okay.
buy it on the internet. Yes.
Okay. And you'll sign if people send it to you. How thick is it?
It's like a normal size paperback.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's not, and then we get the book rate or whatever. So we'll send them to Alexandra. She'll sign them for you, and then make sure that you have your self addressed stamped envelope, as they used to
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
in it. And that's so okay. What's your next one?
Okay, my last one is, oh, this is something that I asked for on my own Christmas list, so I haven't read it yet. It's called Do Admit, and it's a graphic novel about the Mitford sisters. So the Mitford sisters are this famous set of five aristocratic British sisters, several of whom became writers, several others of whom married like major figures in the Nazi party. So it's just this kind of really, really crazy family saga that's like fairly well known. But this woman who is a graphic artist got really obsessed with it and decided to write a graphic novel kind of about the Mitford sisters, but also about her own like relationship to all of the revelations about their lives. So as somebody who has consumed a lot of Mitford sister media in the past, I really want to read this. The two best known author Mitford sisters are the oldest, Nancy, who wrote Love in a Cold Climate, which is a really fun kind of farcical novel about rich people in England after the war. And then the youngest sister was a radical, and there's a new biography of her. She's Jessica Mitford, but she also wrote The American Way of Death, which was an expose of funeral homes and funeral practice in the 1960s. So she was like a muckraking journalist after she like left England, married an American, spent the rest of her life in California. So it's both fun to read about them, and then it's also fun to read their work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that sounds like a good one. Yeah. Um, and then yeah, the funeral. Yeah, the funeral industry is just like
Yeah.
don't get me started on that one. Okay, and so then the other one, there's one by he recently passed away, and Gregory Matola had kind of like said, was friends with him, and it's a book by Ole Lundberg, which is uh is it an architecture of craft, and he was an architect, but he also did, he handcrafted a lot of the pieces that they would have in places, and so it was kind of like his process, and that's kind of, so that's kind of in memoriam to that one. And I think also I was just like, as far as, not she's not in the book, I interviewed Jennifer Luce like almost a year ago, but she had a kind of a thrift sale. It was like a designer thrift sale at her place, but she had like the huge Annie Leibovitz book there, and I said, "Oh, are you selling this?" She's like, "No, I'm not going to sell that."
No, I'm
But
sure that's like
never,
$1,000 book now. Yeah. Or
it's
more.
like $8,000, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I had like seen it, but it was just amazing. But one of the things that I was kind of surprised is, you go through these Annie Leibovitz books, and then you can look and you're saying, like, oh my gosh, like they have had so much plastic surgery. Like, look, this is the way they used to. This is the way they look today. So it was so funny, going through this book, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then all of the Vanity Fair spreads where I'm like, my gosh, look, like even the guys too, because
Yeah.
I'm totally, unless you have, people are always like saying, "Oh, do you have plastic surgery?" I'm like, "No, I don't have plastic surgery." I said, it's like, yeah, I've got good genes, but it's like, no, and I never smoked, or, it's like, my dad smoked, and his skin was like amazing for somebody that smoked since he was 20. But, it's like, just, God, just don't even go down that road, But especially because Annie Leibovitz is going to be able to document it. If anything, if for nothing else, just don't even do it. Um, okay. So is there any other like little stocking stuffers or anything?
I think I'm gonna get everyone in my family a stainless steel carabiner because I found those are super useful for all sorts of things. So that's my main stocking stuffer. I like to get things that are very useful. I feel like in past years I got, there are these, one of the bike companies makes these, they're kind of like slap bracelets that light up. So if you're biking at night, you can put one on your ankle or whatever so that you're more visible. So yeah, that's kind of my speed of stocking stuffer.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. And then any type of I guess, like, also the enclosure, like if you're gonna um any of the do you use these like exploding money things that they have now?
Oh,
Is
no,
you
I
can
don't
buy
do
you
that.
can buy those. You can buy those on Etsy also. They have like other people have come up with something, instead of just getting it at Walmart or something, where the whole package kind of explodes or something. And then just like different kind of packaging that you can make for gift cards or whatever, or like other, or books, like if I um one of the books I got was it was an old book, and so the person made, and this is my late ex-husband actually, when he was maybe in, like, we were first married or something, and they made it out of uh foam core, and then kind of like had the whole book, and then put the book, because it was a John Ruskin book, put the John Ruskin book inside of it.
Nice.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
had it like
Yeah.
covered up, and then did this handmade wrapping paper that he had printed or whatever, and then, like, wrapped it up that way. So, these are just ways that, like, you can kind of like make something more unique. One time I gave somebody a book, and I had gotten it signed for them, and so I took a picture of the architect signing the book, and then I put the picture inside of the book, and then I had it shrink wrapped, which isn't very, environmental, but I had it shrink wrapped as if it came like that. And then when they then when they
Oh,
opened it
that's
up,
cool.
they
Yeah.
like saw the photo in it, and then they thought it was just like sure. It was like, oh no, I guess they did it. Yeah. So any kind of those things, or like some type of unique bookmark maybe in the book, something like that, just kind of wrapping. Do you
Yeah.
coordinate? Do you wrap? Do you coordinate all of the wrapping paper?
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't because I'm a real utilitarian in terms of wrapping. So I am mostly using wrapping paper that I've saved from previous Christmases. So that means it doesn't all match. My husband wraps everything in brown paper, but he usually color codes it by family member. So yeah, he's more into that. I don't
Yeah.
know though. I mean, my kids are teenagers now, and I don't really feel like they need that much stuff. So I feel like we are doing, one big gift uh that may be something that is impossible to wrap. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
actually
Yeah.
foresee a lot of wrapping in my future this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Or experiences or something. Like my
Yeah.
my mother had saved all these boxes, which of course, some maybe like looking back, I'm like, yeah, I guess some of them for like 70s or something. But when I saw it, they were in all these boxes up in the attic. And when I was there, I'm like, I just told my stepdad, like, let's get, I said, because we don't exchange gifts. They're in the Midwest. They moved to the Midwest like 30 years ago. And so they it's like, I mean, we don't send we don't send big gifts, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
kids are like 25, 27, 31. It's just like basically like cash, right? Most of the time, we're just like moving cash around. So, um, yeah. Um, Here, your husband can do something with this brown
Yes,
wrap. Yeah,
exactly.
brown
He
wrapping
probably
tape.
owns that already. Yeah.
Can draw on it or something. I was like, I like found it fell out of my closet actually, but in the with the wrapping paper stuff, and I was like, oh, I could do them all in, brown, craft paper, but then I could do something fun with these with this, and then you just, you lick and stick, and then these were made like these are like super small, but just any of like this stuff, like if people want to give give out things for their business or something, like this is stuff where they're, it's just laser cut and then they have it in. I mean, this is, obviously like a bottle opener, but then you could also put it with like, bottles of beer, and then, just any alcohol. And I think a big thing now is like pies. Like, does it seem like a lot of people are giving out pies in
I
New York?
haven't seen
No.
that. No. Yeah.
To a trust seminar, and they gave out a coupon for a pie at a local
Hmm.
place. And then I'm
Okay.
going to a real estate thing tonight, and they're giving out pie. So I think that's like a trendy thing, is this pie thing. So everybody bake a pie or something. I've got my pumpkin pie recipe that's on the that I wrote like several years ago on my blog about pumpkin pie. So my grandmother's recipe for pumpkin pies. Yeah. So, okay. Well, anything else that you'd like to say?
I don't think so.
Okay. So so the books that you have are what's the one about
The Design
childhood?
of Childhood and Meet Me by the Fountain.
Okay. And the Design of Childhood one, what did you win a Pulitzer Prize for?
I won a Pulitzer Prize for a series of columns that I wrote last year. And
Okay.
we just put out a new edition of the Design of Childhood that includes those essays as an
Okay. Okay.
appendix. Yeah.
Okay. So it was about that. It was about the
Yes.
design. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But I had
Okay.
already
So
written a book about it. Yeah.
yes, yes. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I'll put all of these links in the blog, which is linked to the podcast. And
Great.
thank you so much, Alexandra. And hold on a second. I gotta get the last part of the stone architect. Um And that's a wrap on today's episode. A huge shout out to our sponsor, Stone Architect, powering the Granite Your Planet movement. If you're ready to build smarter, cleaner, and way more sustainably, head over to stonearchitect.org and see why designers, cities, and creators worldwide are choosing natural granite to shape the future. Thanks for listening. Stay inspired, stay future focused, and as always, granite your planet and build for generations. And that's a wrap. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks. I'm
Sure.
gonna turn I'll turn it off and then